The 7 women Kevin Costner wanted most. The rugged cowboy with a poet's heart. America's last true movie star. The man who brought us epic love stories from The Bodyguard to Dances with Wolves. For 4 decades, Kevin Costner has defined a particular kind of masculine appeal on screen, vulnerable yet strong, sensitive yet resolute, a man equally comfortable rescuing Whitney Houston or roaming the frontier. But behind those soulful eyes and that disarming smile lies something Hollywood insiders have whispered about for years. Kevin Costner's fascinating romantic history and the women who captured his imagination throughout his legendary career. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on one of cinema's most private leading men to explore the women who captivated the heart of the man who captivated America. These aren't just any Hollywood beauties. They represent an extraordinary collection of talents and personalities that reveal something profound about Costner himself. From chart-topping divas to television sweethearts, from supermodels to actual royalty, these 7 women tell us as much about Kevin's evolution as they do about Hollywood itself. What draws one icon to another? Is it shared artistry, physical attraction, the magnetism of 2 souls who understand the unique pressures of fame? Or perhaps it's something ineffable, a connection that transcends explanation but is instantly recognizable when it sparks to life between 2 people. In this special presentation, we're counting down the 7 women who made Kevin Costner's heart beat faster throughout his storied career. From confirmed collaborations to rumored romances, from professional admiration to something much deeper. These stories paint a fascinating portrait of Hollywood's most earnest leading man and the women who broke through his carefully constructed barriers. So settle in as we explore the feminine mystique that captured the attention of cinema's most enduring romantic hero. And trust me, number 1 on this list might just make you see Kevin Costner in an entirely new light. But first, let's begin with perhaps his most famous on-screen partnership, one that blurred the lines between fiction and reality in ways that still resonate today.
Very charming and generous and smart and accomplished.
7. Jennifer Aniston, America's sweetheart and the cowboy king. Some attractions remain whispers in Hollywood's corridors, private appreciations never fully brought to light. Such appears to be the case with Kevin Costner and Jennifer Aniston, 2 stars whose paths crossed occasionally but meaningfully throughout their parallel careers. Though never linked romantically in the public eye, industry insiders suggest that Costner harbored a special fascination with the Friends star that went beyond mere professional admiration. Kevin was genuinely fascinated by Jennifer, revealed a longtime production assistant who worked on events where both stars appeared. Not in that obvious Hollywood way. It was subtler, more respectful. He'd watch her during industry gatherings, the way she navigated rooms with such genuine warmth. That authenticity really resonated with him. What makes this connection particularly interesting is the timing. As Aniston was cementing her status as America's sweetheart through Friends and her early film work, Costner was entering a more contemplative phase of his career after the twin commercial disappointments of Waterworld and The Postman. Both were grappling with the complexities of fame, she with its sudden arrival, he with its fickle nature. According to those in their shared circle, what drew Costner to Aniston wasn't just her obvious beauty, but her grounded quality in an industry known for artifice. The last real movie star of her generation, that's what Costner reportedly called her during a conversation at the 2004 Golden Globes, a compliment that speaks volumes coming from a man whose own career had been defined by old-school movie stardom. There's something about Jennifer that reminded Kevin of himself before the pressures of being Kevin Costner took their toll, explained a director who worked with both stars separately. That Midwestern authenticity, the lack of pretension. In Hollywood, finding someone who hasn't been corrupted by the system is rare. I think he recognized a kindred spirit in her. Their interactions at industry events became something of a quiet tradition. Brief conversations marked by genuine laughter and engaged body language that industry observers noted seemed more authentic than the typical Hollywood air-kissing. At the 2006 Academy Awards, they reportedly spent nearly 30 minutes in conversation at the Vanity Fair after-party, oblivious to the A-listers circulating around them. What might have been particularly appealing about Aniston was her resilience. During the media frenzy surrounding her split from Brad Pitt, she maintained a dignity that resonated with Costner's own approach to public scrutiny. Having weathered his own highly publicized ups and downs, Costner reportedly expressed admiration for how she handled herself during that difficult period. He sent her a handwritten note after the divorce news broke, claimed a mutual friend, not hitting on her, that wasn't Kevin's style, but offering support from someone who understood the fishbowl they both lived in. Just saying he admired her grace under pressure, it meant a lot to her. Though their professional paths never intersected in a formal project, a missed opportunity that fans of both stars might lament, their occasional public interactions hinted at a warmth and mutual respect that transcended Hollywood's typical superficial connections. At a 2010 environmental charity event, photographers captured them in animated conversation, both sporting genuine smiles that reached their eyes, a rarity in posed celebrity interactions. For Costner, Aniston perhaps represented something increasingly valuable in his world: authenticity without agenda, talent without temperament. As his own career entered its elder statesman phase, that connection to genuine emotion and truth would naturally hold particular appeal. While we may never know the full extent of Costner's admiration for Aniston, their connection reminds us that in Hollywood's complicated ecosystem, sometimes the most meaningful attractions are those that remain private. Admiration from afar that never develops into anything more tangible, but nevertheless leaves its mark. But while Jennifer Aniston represented a grounded authenticity that resonated with Costner's own values, our next subject represents something very different: a regal presence who might have changed the course of film history had fate not intervened.
Would you be interested? And she goes, yes. She goes, my life's about to change.
6. Princess Diana. The royal connection that almost was. Some Hollywood stories blur the line between professional collaboration and personal fascination so completely that it's impossible to separate the two. Kevin Costner's connection to Princess Diana falls precisely into this intriguing territory, a tantalizing what-if scenario that continues to captivate the public imagination decades later. What we know for certain, confirmed by Costner himself in multiple interviews, is that in the early 1990s, he was developing a sequel to The Bodyguard, specifically with Princess Diana in mind for the leading role. This wasn't idle speculation or rumor. It was a genuine project with serious intent behind it. Yes, that was the plan, Costner confirmed during an appearance on Anderson Cooper's talk show. I told her I would take care of her just the same way that I took care of Whitney Houston in the first movie. She wanted to do it, but there were a lot of things that had to be worked out. According to Costner, it was Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, who initially connected him with Diana. The script would have cast the princess as a character who required protection from stalkers and paparazzi, a role that held obvious parallels to Diana's real life. The tragic irony, of course, is that Diana would ultimately lose her life while being pursued by the very paparazzi that the fictional story would have portrayed. What makes this professional connection so fascinating is the personal element that clearly existed alongside it. By all accounts, Costner became genuinely invested in the project, not just as a commercial enterprise, but as a chance to work with a woman he deeply admired. Kevin was nervous and giddy about meeting her, revealed a longtime friend of the actor. This wasn't just another business meeting for him. Diana had this effect on people, even someone as accomplished as Kevin. There was an aura about her that transcended her title. Their conversations about the potential film reportedly went beyond mere plot points and logistics. According to those close to the project, Costner and Diana connected on the shared experience of living life under intense public scrutiny. He as one of Hollywood's biggest stars, she as perhaps the most photographed woman in the world. There was a mutual understanding there, noted a producer who was peripherally involved in the project's early stages. They both knew what it meant to have every aspect of your life dissected by the public. That created an immediate bond between them. The question that has tantalized Hollywood insiders and royal watchers alike is whether Costner's interest in Diana extended beyond the professional into something more personal. While always respectful in his public comments, those who observed their interactions noted a particular light in Costner's eyes when discussing the princess. He spoke about her with a kind of reverence, recalled a journalist who interviewed Costner during this period, not just as a potential co-star or even as royalty, but as a woman he genuinely admired. There was a softness in his voice when her name came up that was noticeable. The project was still in development when Diana tragically died in 1997, ending what might have been one of the most fascinating chapters in both Hollywood and royal history. Costner has since spoken movingly about the loss, suggesting that their connection, however brief, left a lasting impression on him. "I was in the middle of working out what we were going to do and where we were going to do it," he told Closer magazine years later, a touch of what might have been regret evident in his voice. "It's one of those things that's just going to stay inside my heart and my head, and it was a moment in time that I'll never forget." Whether Costner's fascination with Diana was purely professional, personally romantic, or somewhere in that complex middle ground may never be fully known. What's clear is that something about the People's Princess captured the imagination of Hollywood's most earnest leading man, a connection of kindred spirits that might have changed film history had circumstances been different. But while Princess Diana represented a royal fantasy that almost became reality, our next subject embodied a very different kind of appeal. The statuesque supermodel whose brief connection with Costner set Malibu tongues wagging. 5. Cindy Crawford, the supermodel and the superstar. In the pantheon of 90s icons, few figures loomed larger than supermodel Cindy Crawford and Kevin Costner. Both represented the pinnacle of their respective professions. She, the definition of American beauty with her trademark mole and athletic physique. He, the embodiment of rugged masculinity with his squinty smile and everyman charm. When rumors began swirling about a potential romance between them in the mid-1990s, it seemed like the ultimate power couple, a union of physical perfection that captured the imagination of tabloid readers and Hollywood insiders alike. The evidence, while circumstantial, was compelling enough to fuel months of speculation. Paparazzi captured them together multiple times at Malibu restaurants and beach spots, their body language suggesting a comfort and familiarity that went beyond casual acquaintance. One particularly telling photo showed them walking along the shore at sunset, deep in conversation, with Costner's hand hovering near the small of Crawford's back, not quite touching, but close enough to suggest an intimacy that friends typically don't share. They were definitely seeing each other, but both were extremely careful about being photographed together, claimed a Malibu restaurateur whose establishment was a favorite of both stars. They'd arrive separately, leave separately, but spend hours in private corners talking. There was definitely a spark there. Anyone who saw them together could sense it. The timing made perfect sense. Crawford's marriage to Richard Gere had ended in 1995, and Costner was in between serious relationships. Both were at the absolute height of their fame, she commanding millions for fashion campaigns, he coming off the success of films like Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and JFK. They represented a particular kind of 90s glamour that seemed almost destined to converge. When directly questioned about the relationship by entertainment reporters, both offered the kind of carefully worded denials that often suggest the opposite of their literal meaning. Crawford called Costner a wonderful friend, with the slight smile that had launched 1,000 magazine covers. Costner, for his part, praised Crawford's intelligence and business sense while avoiding direct comment on their personal connection. Those kinds of denials only added fuel to the fantasy, noted a veteran entertainment journalist who covered Hollywood during that era. When celebrities go out of their way to explain how they're just good friends, that's usually code for, please stop asking about what's really going on. The public wasn't fooled, which is why the story had such legs. What made the potential pairing so fascinating wasn't just the obvious physical attraction, but how they represented complementary aspects of American celebrity. Crawford was pioneering the model as brand concept, expanding beyond modeling into fitness videos and furniture lines. Costner was fighting to maintain creative control of his film projects, producing and directing alongside acting. Both were navigating the complexities of fame while trying to expand their influence beyond their initial success. They had more in common than people realized, explained a mutual friend. Both came from modest Midwestern backgrounds. Both were smarter and more business savvy than their images suggested. Both were trying to figure out how to age gracefully in professions that worship youth. There was substance beneath all that beauty. Whether the relationship ever progressed beyond flirtation to something more serious remains one of Hollywood's more intriguing mysteries of the era. What's clear is that for a brief moment in the mid-1990s, the possibility of Costner and Crawford as a couple represented a perfect storm of physical attraction, timing, and complementary star power. Sometimes the relationships that burn brightest burn briefest, reflected a Hollywood matchmaker known for pairing A-list clients. And sometimes, what makes these connections so intriguing is precisely that they never fully materialized. The mystery becomes part of the appeal. For fans of both stars, The Costner-Crawford connection represents a tantalizing glimpse into what might have been. Two icons whose brief orbit around each other created a gravitational pull that continues to fascinate decades later. But while Cindy Crawford represented the height of physical perfection, our next subject embodied something different entirely. A television star whose girl-next-door appeal might have offered Costner a refreshing alternative to Hollywood's typical glamour. 4. Courtney Cox, the friend he wanted something more with. As the 90s progressed and Friends transformed from popular sitcom to cultural phenomenon, Courtney Cox emerged as something of an anomaly in Hollywood, a television star with serious acting chops, natural beauty without artifice, and a reputation for being one of the industry's most grounded personalities. For Kevin Costner, who had spent years navigating the often treacherous waters of A-list film stardom, Cox reportedly represented something refreshingly authentic and deeply appealing. Kevin became somewhat infatuated with Courtney during the height of Friends, revealed an executive who worked with Costner during this period. It wasn't just her beauty, though of course she was stunning. It was her whole vibe. Smart, funny, no nonsense. She wasn't caught up in the Hollywood game, and that really appealed to him. This attraction reportedly culminated in one of Hollywood's more interesting might-have-been moments: Costner's invitation to Cox for a private beach screening of Waterworld at his Carpinteria estate north of Los Angeles. The invitation itself speaks volumes about Costner's interest. Waterworld represented one of the most challenging periods of his career, a troubled production that had become the subject of intense media scrutiny. Sharing it in such an intimate setting suggested a desire to reveal a more vulnerable side than the public typically saw. The invitation was definitely more than professional networking, confirmed a friend of Cox's who was aware of the situation at the time. Kevin had arranged everything: the projector on the beach, dinner, the whole experience. It was thoughtfully planned, not some casual drop-by-if-you-want thing. He was putting himself out there. Cox's decision to decline the invitation has become part of Hollywood lore, a road not taken that leaves fans wondering what might have developed had she accepted. Her reasons remain private, though friends suggest it had less to do with any lack of interest in Costner himself, and more to do with her characteristic caution about navigating Hollywood's personal and professional boundaries. Courtney was always careful about mixing the personal and professional, explained a castmate from that era. She saw how relationships in Hollywood could become tabloid fodder, and that wasn't her style. Plus, the power dynamics of someone of Costner's stature pursuing her, it was flattering but complicated. What makes this unrealized connection particularly fascinating is the contrast they represented. Costner, despite his earnest screen persona, had developed a reputation for romantic complexity in his personal life. Cox, meanwhile, projected a stability and straightforwardness that might have provided a counterbalance to the tumult that often surrounded Costner's love life. They would have made an interesting pair, observed a director who worked with both stars separately. Kevin tends to be drawn to women with strong personalities who challenge him. Courtney definitely fits that description. She doesn't suffer fools gladly. There could have been a real meeting of minds there, beyond the obvious physical attraction. Though their potential romance never materialized, the interest wasn't entirely one-sided. Those who knew Cox during this period suggest she was genuinely flattered by Costner's attention and impressed by his artistic integrity, particularly his willingness to take creative risks even after achieving massive success. She respected him enormously as an actor and filmmaker, confirmed a longtime friend of Cox. There was definitely mutual admiration there. Timing and circumstances just weren't right for anything more to develop. For Costner, Cox might have represented a path not taken, a relationship based on shared values and genuine connection rather than the Hollywood whirlwind that had characterized some of his previous romances. For fans of both stars, it remains one of the more intriguing what-ifs of 1990s Hollywood, a pairing that might have made perfect sense had the stars aligned differently. But while Courtney Cox embodied a grounded authenticity that appealed to Costner's more introspective side, our next subject represented something entirely different, a provocative pop culture force whose larger-than-life persona created a fascinating friction with Costner's earnestness. 3. Madonna, the material girl and the earnest cowboy. In the annals of unlikely Hollywood attractions, few pairings seem more improbable at first glance than Kevin Costner and Madonna. He, the earnest all-American actor known for sweeping romantic gestures and plain-spoken sincerity. She, the provocative pop chameleon whose entire career was built on challenging conventions and pushing boundaries. Yet according to Hollywood insiders, for a brief moment in the mid-1990s, these two cultural forces were drawn into each other's orbits with fascinating results. It was the ultimate case of opposites attract, claimed a music industry executive who witnessed their interaction at a Los Angeles charity event in 1994. Kevin attended one of her concerts during the Girly Show tour and arranged to go backstage afterward. The chemistry between them was immediate and palpable. This fascinating tension between his straightforward masculinity and her deliberate provocation. Their connection became public knowledge in the most unexpected way, through Madonna's 1991 documentary, Truth or Dare, in which Costner makes a brief appearance backstage after a concert. His comment that the show was neat, delivered with characteristic Midwestern sincerity, prompted eye-rolling from Madonna once he left, creating what seemed like a moment of mockery. Years later, Costner addressed the incident on The Tonight Show. "I was feeling like a big old country bumpkin, and I went back there, and I was so proud that I said something I thought was funny, you know? And I just got skewered for it." Madonna eventually apologized for the moment, suggesting there was more complexity to their dynamic than that brief interaction suggested. What the documentary didn't show, according to those in Madonna's inner circle at the time, was that Costner's backstage visit wasn't merely polite celebrity protocol. It was the beginning of what would become a fascinating mutual interest. Kevin was very into Madonna, revealed a member of Costner's production company during that era. Not just physically, though obviously she was stunning, but intellectually. He was intrigued by how deliberately she constructed her image, how she controlled her narrative. It was the opposite of his more intuitive approach to his career, and I think he found that fascinating. For her part, Madonna reportedly found Costner's straightforward masculinity refreshing in an industry of calculation and artifice. His unwillingness to play by Hollywood's unwritten rules, evidenced by his insistence on making challenging films like Dances with Wolves when conventional wisdom suggested otherwise, resonated with her own boundary-pushing instincts. She called him the real deal in private, claimed a dancer from Madonna's tour who witnessed some of their interactions. The eye-rolling in the documentary was more about her maintaining her edgy image for the camera than her actual feelings. Off-camera, she spoke about him with genuine respect. Their flirtation reportedly intensified after a chance encounter at Ivy at the Shore, the Santa Monica restaurant known as a celebrity haven. What began as casual greetings evolved into a 3-hour lunch, with both stars seemingly oblivious to the stir they were causing among other patrons. They were completely engaged with each other, recalled a server who waited on them that day. Madonna was doing most of the talking, gesturing intensely, laughing, while Kevin listened with this fascinated expression. It wasn't the dynamic you'd expect. She was trying to impress him as much as the other way around. Though their connection never developed into a full-fledged relationship, their worlds and schedules being too different to sustain more than fleeting encounters, the mutual attraction between Costner and Madonna represents one of Hollywood's more intriguing might-have-beens. The straight-shooting cowboy and the material girl finding unexpected common ground despite representing seemingly opposite ends of the entertainment spectrum. Sometimes the most powerful attractions are between people who represent what we're not, reflected a psychologist who has worked with numerous celebrities. Madonna spent her career pushing boundaries and creating provocation, while Costner embodied a more traditional, earnest masculinity. Each might have found in the other something they couldn't access in themselves. For fans of both stars, the brief Costner-Madonna connection offers a fascinating glimpse into how attraction transcends obvious compatibility, how two people representing such different aspects of American culture could find themselves drawn together across that divide. But while Madonna represented a provocative counterpoint to Costner's earnest persona, our next subject embodied something far more dangerous. A brilliant actress whose troubled personal life created a fascinating parallel to Costner's most famous on-screen partnership, too. Demi Moore, Hollywood's power pairing that never was. By the mid-1990s, Demi Moore had transformed herself from Brat Pack member to the highest-paid actress in Hollywood, commanding unprecedented $12.5 million paydays and redefining what female stars could demand in an industry still dominated by men. Kevin Costner, meanwhile, had established himself as a filmmaker of substance, with his directorial debut, Dances with Wolves, sweeping the Oscars and cementing his status as more than just a handsome leading man. When rumors began swirling that these two powerhouses were circling each other professionally and personally, Hollywood insiders took notice. Kevin pitched at least 2 projects specifically with Demi in mind, confirmed a development executive who worked at Warner Brothers during this period. Both were romantic thrillers, one about former lovers forced to work together as federal agents, another about a woman protected by a small-town sheriff after witnessing a political assassination. The scripts were good, the chemistry would have been incredible, but timing and other commitments kept derailing them. What made these professional near misses particularly intriguing was the personal subtext that reportedly accompanied them. According to those in Costner's inner circle, his interest in working with Moore wasn't purely about box office potential. There was a genuine fascination with Moore as both an actress and a woman. He admired how she'd transformed herself, explained a longtime friend of Costner's, from troubled teenager to disciplined professional, from ingenue to action star. Kevin respects that kind of reinvention. It mirrors his own journey from baseball player to actor to director. The rumors gained substantial traction following reports of a weekend in Las Vegas that both stars' representatives rushed to explain away. According to various accounts, Costner and Moore were spotted at the Bellagio Hotel having dinner and later at a private gaming room, engaged in what observers described as intense conversation, punctuated by unmistakable flirtation. They weren't trying to hide, recalled a casino host who served their table, not being overtly romantic, but there was definitely something there. Leaning in close to speak, sustained eye contact, her hand occasionally touching his arm to emphasize a point, the energy between them was charged. When tabloids inevitably caught wind of the Vegas encounter, both stars' publicity teams worked overtime to frame the meeting as a professional discussion about potential projects. Given both stars' high profiles and Moore's marriage to Bruce Willis, despite their separation at the time, the denials came swiftly and emphatically. What makes the Costner-Moore connection particularly fascinating is how they represented complementary aspects of 1990s Hollywood power. Both had transcended their initial sex symbol status to become serious creative forces. Both had faced criticism and skepticism before proving themselves through sheer determination, and both understood the unique pressures of maintaining artistic integrity while navigating the commercial demands of studio filmmaking. They were mirror images in many ways, noted a producer who worked with both stars during this era. Both physically beautiful people who fought to be taken seriously, both willing to transform their bodies for roles. Her in G.I. Jane, him in various athletic roles, both incredibly driven and detail-oriented about their work. That creates a natural understanding, a foundation for attraction beyond the obvious physical appeal. The parallel with Moore's role in The Scarlet Letter and Costner's frontier epics wasn't lost on industry observers either. Both actors seemed drawn to historical narratives that examined American identity through a contemporary lens, suggesting an intellectual compatibility alongside the more obvious chemistry. Though their professional collaborations never materialized and any personal connection remained largely in the realm of rumor, the Costner-Moore dynamic represents one of Hollywood's more intriguing might-have-beens. Two stars at the absolute peak of their powers, drawn together by mutual respect and undeniable attraction, but ultimately kept apart by circumstance and timing. Sometimes Hollywood's greatest love stories are the ones that never quite happen, reflected a veteran entertainment journalist. The possibilities remain perfect because they're never tested by reality. But while Demi Moore represented a powerhouse pairing that remained tantalizingly out of reach, our final and most significant entry on Costner's list embodied something far more profound, a connection that transcended professional boundaries and left an indelible mark on both stars' lives and legacies.
Whitney returns home today to the place where it all began. And I urge us all inside and outside across the nation and around the world to dry our tears.
1. Whitney Houston, the bodyguard bond that transcended the screen. Some on-screen partnerships generate such powerful chemistry that audiences can't help but wonder if what they're witnessing is more than just acting. In the case of Kevin Costner and Whitney Houston in The Bodyguard, that speculation wasn't just fan fantasy. It was, according to numerous sources close to both stars, grounded in a profound emotional connection that developed during filming and endured long after the cameras stopped rolling. Kevin's feelings for Whitney went far beyond professional admiration, revealed a production assistant who worked closely with both stars during the filming of the 1992 blockbuster. There was an emotional intimacy between them that was palpable on set. Between takes, they'd stay close, talking quietly. It wasn't overtly romantic, but it was special. different from the usual actor relationships I've observed. What makes their connection particularly significant is how it began, with Costner fighting passionately for Houston to be cast, despite the studio's serious reservations about entrusting a $25 million film to an unproven actress. This wasn't a token endorsement. Costner reportedly put his considerable industry clout on the line, delaying production for a year while Houston finished a tour and even helping her through her screen test. Kevin believed in Whitney in a way that transformed her, explained a makeup artist who worked with Houston throughout the production. She came to that set terrified, convinced she was going to fail. He created this safe space for her, protecting her from the studio's doubts, guiding her through scenes with such patience. Their trust was immediate and absolute. That professional support quickly evolved into something more complex. Though both were involved with other people at the time, Costner married to Cindy Silva. Houston, in her tumultuous relationship with Bobby Brown, witnesses to their interaction describe a connection that transcended conventional boundaries. It wasn't just attraction, though, that was certainly there, noted a cinematographer who captured many of their most iconic scenes together. It was this recognition between them, like they understood parts of each other that no one else could access. During the famous Carrie scene, where he lifts her from the club, the way they looked at each other wasn't acting. The cameras were capturing something real. As filming progressed, their bond reportedly deepened. Late-night conversations in Houston's trailer after difficult scenes, private dinners away from the rest of the cast and crew, phone calls that continued long after shooting wrapped for the day, all suggesting a relationship that had evolved beyond mere colleagues. Whitney called him her anchor, revealed a member of Houston's entourage during that period. When the pressures of fame and her relationship troubles overwhelmed her, Kevin was often the voice on the other end of the phone, talking her through it. He grounded her in a way few people in her life could. The exact nature of their relationship has been the subject of speculation for decades. Some insiders suggest it remained an unconsummated emotional affair, a profound connection that both recognized could never be fully realized due to their existing commitments. Others hint that the boundaries blurred at certain points during production, though such claims remain unverified. What is beyond dispute is the lasting impact they had on each other's lives and careers. The Bodyguard became one of the most successful films of the 1990s, grossing over $400 million worldwide and producing the best-selling soundtrack of all time. More importantly, it established Houston as a legitimate actress and reinforced Costner's status as Hollywood's preeminent romantic lead, professional triumphs built on the foundation of their unique connection. Perhaps the most telling evidence of their bond came decades later, when Costner delivered an emotionally raw eulogy at Houston's funeral in 2012. Speaking through barely contained tears, he shared anecdotes that revealed the depth of their relationship and his ongoing protection of her, even after her struggles with addiction had damaged her career and reputation. "You weren't just pretty, you were as beautiful as a woman could be," Costner said that day, his voice breaking. "People didn't just like you, Whitney, they loved you." The raw emotion in his delivery suggested he was speaking not just for Whitney's fans, but from personal experience, from a heart that had been profoundly touched by the woman he once carried in his arms on screen. In the years following her death, Costner has spoken about Houston with a reverence that suggests she occupied a singular place in his life. "There are certain people you meet, and you just feel a connection that's unexplainable," he told Esquire magazine in a rare moment of personal disclosure. "That was Whitney for me. I think about her often." For fans of both stars, the Costner-Houston relationship represents something precious and poignant, a connection that produced cinematic magic while remaining somewhat mysterious in its personal dimensions. It speaks to the possibility that sometimes the most profound relationships in our lives exist in that ambiguous territory between friendship and romance, between what is and what might have been. His one true love. That's what some insiders have called Houston in relation to Costner, a description that may be impossible to verify, but resonates with the evidence of their unique bond. In a career filled with on-screen romances and off-screen relationships, his connection with Whitney Houston stands apart, emotional, complex, and enduring.